Welcome to the Dimecast podcast. Of course, it's Danny Hernandez, the man who's training quarterbacks all over the world now. I'm Beto Duran, who's just along for the ride, asking the stupid questions that the parents would want to ask, and if they had the access to you. Make sure you follow the Dimecast podcast Instagram account. I think it's Dimecast_pod. Make sure that's where you can leave us questions or anything else like that. And on YouTube, leave the comments below. All right, Danny, you have trained a lot of quarterbacks. You're a young quarterback trainer in the game.
Thank you. Thank you.
You are young because this position didn't exist when you were in high school, or it was there.
Yeah,
but it was just a couple dudes,
yes,
and they were training dudes.
Yes.
Now it seems like everybody who's ever played quarterback is a quarterback trainer.
Very true.
But not everybody is a teacher.
Yes,
you can train it. You're a teacher. You're a mentor. You're out there, and you've also dealt with kids from when they're little kids, and now you're starting to see those youngsters that you started off with achieving success at the collegiate level, professionally, both on and off the field. And I would say probably the biggest talent you've coached and trained over the years would be Bryce Young, now the quarterback with the Carolina Panthers. Bryce, I've seen the pictures of you back in the day at a park in Pasadena when he was like in middle school. A skinny, scrawny cathedral quarterback that looked more like he was the ball boy on the freshman team than he was your varsity quarterback, but he was a baller. And so congratulations to Bryce and everything that he's accomplished, and you've been out there. But you recently able to catch up with him, and his schedule is crazy. Yours is crazy. Was it breakfast?
Yeah, breakfast.
At a Norm's? At a
Norm's,
Denny's?
man. Norm's.
You guys went to Norm's?
On. We went to Norm's, man. In Pico Rivera, okay? Come on now.
Oh, that's a good spot.
Yes, it is.
The Norm's in Pico.
Yes.
Right there by the golf course.
Oh, yeah.
Let's just say they have fantastic service.
Yes,
the
they
servers
really
have been there forever.
Yes.
Mijo, ¿cómo estás? There you
Yes.
go. The coffee is always on point.
Nothing but love. Nothing but
So
love.
how do you take a guy who's a multimillionaire to Norm's?
Well, you know what? Bryce ends up calling me, and he's just like, hey, man, what do you got going this week? Just kind of wanted to catch up and just kind of hang out. He's like, I'll go to you, wherever you're at, and I said, well, I got a couple sessions, over here at Smith, which he's been on plenty of times. And so he's like, oh, I'll meet you over there. And he's like, let's go grab a bite to eat or whatever. It's like, oh, do you mind just going up the block,
right
to Norm's, it's like, let's go do that. And he's like, yeah, let's do that. So then, we end up meeting. And just catching up, man. I mean, it was great just to kind of.
Because it's one thing to text them, over and over,
which we do often. We communicate a lot, and throughout the years. And again, he's just a great human being. Obviously he's a phenomenal talent, but just as a human being, he's always been that same guy. He's just been great. And, we just kind of, it was good for us to catch up because throughout the year, there were ups and downs this year that a lot of people ended up seeing, throughout the season. And, to see him thrive the way he did to end the season off was really cool, so we just kind of talked, through that stuff. And I love just kind of picking his brain a little bit to get a couple of those nuggets to share with the other guys on like, how did you deal with this adversity? How did you deal with that? What was kind of going through your mind?
And we'll get into that. We'll get into that.
And all that stuff was just really cool, to hear that, man. But just like us going back and obviously going through memory lane of just so many different things, man. I mean, we got started when he was in sixth grade, really? So to see him where he's at right now is just really, really cool.
Now, this is where I always tell people, over 20 years covered sports here in Los Angeles, and people always say, well, why do you like working high school stuff? You don't get paid for it a lot. I volunteer, I'm doing stuff. Yeah. I said, because that's the last time these kids are innocent.
That's so true.
As an athlete.
Yeah.
Even now, I mean, some of them have their NIL, some of them have, their sponsors, they have their media team around them, but they're still enjoying the moment. Even though the game has changed where guys go to 4 different high schools, they're still a student. They still got to go to class. Yeah. Like they're still worried about prom or whatever. It's the last instant because by the time you get to college, it's like, okay, no, this is for real. Yeah. And then pros forget about it. Yeah. But the innocence that Bryce has he's still in his early 20s.
Yes.
Hey, Danny, I'll have my agent call you. We can set up. We'll go to Mastros. Which an NFL quarterback normally does. Yeah. A professional athlete does. Or I'll meet you at, no, you come to me. We're going to have a kale salad at whatever. Nah, like, we're at Norm's,
We're at
bro.
Norm's, just down to earth, just two regular dudes, just having a good old time, man. And, it was it was interesting. There was a funny moment while we're there sitting down, right? I'm like, all right, this guy walks up on us. So I was like, okay, he's obviously going to ask him for a picture, autograph, or something like that. So I just kind of have my head down.
Right, but we're in Pico. It might be asking you for the autograph.
Well, so then he
might be like, hey, I got a kid.
So we're sitting down right there, right? And, we're talking. I see the guy just kind of right here. I don't do one of those, just kind of let him be. And he's like, Danny Hernandez? He says like that. It was hilarious. Hilarious. And after I was wait.
This wasn't a setup, Bryce.
This was not.
I did not. Danny didn't tell me the story until right now. I'm just joking, making you a Pico celebrity.
No, it was hilarious. Here's how crazy this was. And I said, I look at him and I have no idea who the guy is when I look at him, right? And I'm like, yes. And then he goes, oh, and he introduces himself. And then Bryce is right there, and Bryce's body goes, I know who you are, man. He tells Bryce, right? And he shakes Bryce's hand. And then it turns out to be the guy from when I was in junior high, the starting running back from my junior high team.
No way.
Shout out Alhambra Thunderbirds that are no longer in existence. But that's where he was. That's where I last seen him. You know what I'm saying? It had been years. The guy's name is Ray Casper. Played with us in Thunderbirds, then went on to be a starting quarterback at Loyola High School, then went on to USC, was on the team at USC. Really? Yeah. So it was just like,
Ray Casper?
Ray Casper.
Hey, Ray Casper, this episode's about you today, bro.
It's about you, not Bryce, you, man. Yeah. So
Bryce, whatever.
It was hilarious though in that moment, because I was just like, oh man, this guy's going to probably ask me to take the picture. I've been in those moments before with my guys before.
You
guys,
your role.
You guys need me to take the picture? I'll take the picture for you guys, And so that was just kind of funny the way that whole thing played out. We had a good laugh about it after.
Man, Bryce was like, of all the things that happened to me this year, I get my QB trainer gets recognized.
Yeah.
Which Bryce was like, okay, yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
So what kind of breakfast did he have? Come on, what do you QBs eat?
Very healthy. No, yeah. He's very, very healthy. He's was eating good stuff. He wasn't out there acting crazy.
Omelet,
it was probably something along those lines. Yeah.
Maybe that's why he's a multimillionaire athlete.
There's that.
Probably one of the best out there. Looting guy. He's not a lineman.
No.
But when you sit there, Danny, and you look at him, and you're like, damn, like how many of those Pasadena Parks memories come back to you?
Oh, all of them. You just think about all so many little goofy moments, that have came up. And then, it's really cool to just kind of see some of the things that maybe you spoke into existence. It's like I get interviewed all the time and asked about him often, and one of the questions that I get asked, not just about him specifically, but just quarterbacks in general, when do you know, that someone's going to be special? They'll ask that. And I've told them, it's like, he was a guy honestly day one that I just knew, there was just a different kind of wiring that guy has, again, not the biggest guy in the room, not the strongest guy.
Because if he was 6'5", everybody's like, that's the guy.
Yeah, it's automatic. We get why you picked him or whatever the case was. But, it was funny just even with the whole thing when it comes to the connections that I have and network with college coaches. Right. In the early years when all this stuff happened, I'm over here talking to coaches about Bryce when he's in junior high, and they're looking at me like I'm a fool, right? They're like, come on, man. You have this, 5'8", undersized junior high kid, slow your roll, bro. Okay. I said, look, man, I'm telling you, this kid's going to be special. There's something different about this guy. And at an early age, I definitely knew that was there. And just the development continued to happen. And he just did everything right, man, to be honest with you. So I think when he was having his success, what was happening, a lot of those coaches that were initially kind of like, hey, dude, stop, started coming back and say, I think you're on to something over here. Then it obviously would be the next guy, and those things happen.
But that goes to what we've talked about in the past episodes about if Danny's going to vouch for you, you better perform.
Yeah.
Because the day you're some of these parents, QB dads out there will be like, hey, tell this coach I want this offer, but your kid's not good enough for that or not ready for that.
Yeah.
You can't put your name out there.
No.
Because those college coaches will eventually remind you, remember, Danny, you sold me that lemon?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, it's like, there'll be parents that have reached out to me in the past and like, hey, I noticed this kid and this kid got an Alabama offer and a Kentucky offer and whatever. Like, can you forward my kid's film, over there too? It's like, well, I have great relationships with these guys because I don't do that for everybody. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I have my own nephews, that are quarterbacks, and they're very good quarterbacks, Division I quarterbacks.
Shout out Newell.
But I know, what their lane is. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and I know I'm not over over there, blowing up the phone of, Alabama and Kentucky and Georgia and some of these. I know their lane is a little bit more over here, which are still really good schools, but again, I don't like wasting anybody's time,
One thing I've always said is that when you talk to a professional athlete, they always tell you their roots. They'll always talk about if they're off a little bit or if they're not right, always go back to your roots, right? Yeah. Like a Latino house is like, well, if there's a trouble, go see your mom.
Yeah.
They'll fix everything. And a professional athlete will not know what city he's in, will not know who they played against last night, will not know where they're going the next day, but they will know that when they were in 5th grade, they played Pop Warner football with this one person, and they'll remember every single detail about it. It's freaky.
Yeah.
So going back to the Bryce part, when you guys were doing this path, when you're like, okay, you're going to go to Cathedral, we'll see if you end up somewhere else, whatever it is. And then Bryce to go and say, Danny, I'll come to you. I want to talk to you. Why did he want to talk to you?
It was just kind of, I don't know. Maybe you almost feel like it's a safe space. Maybe it's just catching up, maybe it's just, I don't know what it is, but.
Because his schedule is crazy.
No, it is. He's a busy guy, and he's got all kinds of different things going on. And, we went from that breakfast that we had that was great. And then fast forward to this last weekend, that we ended up having was funny is we're watching film on a Friday night with one of our quarterbacks. And as we're watching it, some of the cut-ups that we put together, Jake Mayer does a great job putting a bunch of clips together, and he just happened to have some Bryce clips in there. So one of the clips was just, oh man, it was just such a nasty rep. It looked so good. And I end up recording it for my phone on the TV, and then I forwarded it to him, and I just put like filthy, I put like that. And he's like, oh, thanks coach. I really appreciate that. And I was like, hey, what do you got going this weekend? It's like, well, I'm not doing much. Like, well, we're in Oceanside, not too far from where he stays now. And I said, hey, if you're not doing anything, stop by. It'd be good to, catch up a little bit more, not only with me, but Jake, who's a guy that they had many sessions together, when they were young as kids. And he's like, yeah, totally. I'll end up coming down, So he comes down, ends up seeing the session that we're having on the field with the guys, because when we were done with the session with the Japanese kids, we had other kids that were coming to want to still train. So we trained those kids. He's there for about a good maybe hour watching the kids, staying after, taking pictures with a lot of people and talking to parents and just different things like that. Again, he's so great with all that. And then after we said, hey, well, the next portion of it, if you don't have to leave, we're going to go watch film, and we watch film. I think there might be some cut-ups of you in there. He's like, oh, let's do it. So he sits down, and it was great because when we're watching the film, which we've watched in the past, you look at it and you say, okay, this is more than likely what's going on here, right? You're reading it this way. You ended up seeing this. This is why you did this. This is why you did that. And you could kind of put those pieces together, but then to hear it directly, from the horse's mouth was really cool, just to be able to him to say, well, we noticed that, rather than trying to get the flat defender to come down right here, you were holding the safety a little bit longer. Like, why did you do it that way rather than doing it this way? Well, I'm doing it that way because, and just a whole breakdown, on the details on it.
Did you look at him like, I have no idea what you're saying right now?
No.
Because you went from being, hey, Bryce, left shoulder, right, when he was like 12 years old, to now like, who is this dude? And you had to have that proud moment right there.
The proud moment, yes. But again, we've been in contact so much throughout the years. You see a constant level up on where he's at. And like one of the things I still remember when he made the transition, because, we're training and everything. And then, for the 2 years he's at Cathedral High School, where I'm the quarterback coach over there. So I'm with him for the 2 years. And then when he moves on, I always want to ask these questions and said, hey, where have things changed for you on some of the things that you're doing? Where are you evolving? I just always want to ask those kind of questions. And he says, from a film portion, I feel like I've really leveled up because I'm looking at it through a totally different lens. He's like, I felt like I would look at it before and it was like, I would look at the shell of the defense, but I would really focus on the plays that I'm doing and everything. And then now I'm looking at it a lot more like, okay, did I check into the right play here? Did I, what could I have done just a little bit? You get a little bit more where you start self-scouting and get a little bit more on cleaning some of that stuff up and really trying to make yourself the best version of yourself, right? So he was doing that, and then we go to college, and when he's over there, all the time we spent when he was at Alabama, we'd catch up on things, and of course I'm gonna ask a million questions, and he has a million answers, and then he says, "This is where the evolution is now here," and then now when we get to the league, now he starts going into that, and it's like I mean, there's so many layers, you know, to this whole thing, and to watch how into it he is. And what was cool too for the rest of the guys that are in there in the session, it was refreshing, as he brings up, he's like, I'm not gonna lie, man. I don't miss what you guys are doing right now in this moment. This is the first time that I'm watching any film from the last game that we ended up playing. Like, I need a little bit of my space and my release to end up missing it, you know? And I think it's great because we constantly have this whole no days off, and we're constantly doing this and we're doing all that. And that's great, you know, to a certain extent. But here you have a guy who's doing it at the highest level and has, you know, just been a great example for so many to be able to be just totally honest and just say, I haven't picked them, and you know what? I still probably have another week or so that I could do this and just back up. But he was still all in, man, on every single detail that he was giving the kids. That was priceless, you know. For that, they didn't sign up for that. It was just kind of like a random thing that ended up happening. And you know, I've had so many kids and parents after, you know, message me just saying how appreciative they are to be in that moment, and just to hear him just speaking so real. You know, it was really cool.
That's like I said, that proud moment right there. I know his family, he's a great kid and all that stuff. Yeah. But when you hear him say, I need a break, hear that, parents? Don't call Danny on rainy days. If your kid says, I need a break, it's okay give the kid a break, right? If they need a week off, let them play. If my arm hurts, let them rest.
Yes.
Like, if you're hearing one of the best in the world say, I need months. To just recharge.
Let me just take some time off. I want to miss this whole thing. You know, let me focus on a couple other things, you know, in life. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's like, and we want, you know, them to be very well-rounded. I still remember visiting him at Alabama, and he's a homebody, you know, and it's like, hey, what are you into? What are you doing right now? You know, he's like, you know, the biggest thing that I'm into right now, he goes, is cooking. You know, and then he's showing me these videos of him like just getting down cooking. Like, he's just like, I get down on this meal, or I get down on this meal. Like, and it's just like, you know, you start saying like, hey, let me do some of these other things. Again, when he's all in, he's all in. But let me allow myself to kind of recharge and reset and kind of do some of these other things. I think that's totally important for these guys.
What's some of the things that you took away from that breakfast with him? Because Bryce had an up and down year.
Yes.
He had the reality of, this is the NFL. You better perform this week, or you're going to get replaced. And just because you're replaced doesn't mean you go cry and say, I want to get traded. You work harder, and then you move up. And next thing you know, you're back in the starting rotation. Because especially when you go, if you're an elite quarterback and you're one of the first picks in the top 10, you're going to a bad team. And you're going to a bad situation. And everybody knows it. And everybody's trying to save their job at the same time. So, did you guys get into like how he dealt with that?
Yeah, we
advice
did.
That you can give to some of the young kids?
Yeah, we did. I think one of the things that was, you look at his the history, you know, of him throughout his career, you know, and there has been some ups and downs. I know you look at it and you say, well, he was like Gatorade Player of the Year, won the national championship in high school, you know, wins the Natty in college. He wins the Heisman. He's the number one pick. You look at only the success, right? And that's most of the stuff that we end up seeing. But through that process, there was a lot of adversity. You know, it's like, you know, in the early years, you know, with a lot of stuff, there were a lot of coaches that maybe didn't recruit him. Why? Because, I don't know, maybe he was too short, or he was too this, or he's too that, right? And so you kind of look at some of those things, and so you use that as fuel, and it's kind of like the chip on your shoulder. And then now when we go through that adversity, it's like, oh man, we've had all this success. Now we're dealing with that adversity. You got to channel and go back to that same guy that had all that and dug himself out of that. You know, the other thing that I thought that was great that he was talking about from a message standpoint, and some of the guys were asking him questions on this too, is like, you can't fall in love with all the good things that are being said about you, right? Because then it's going to really get to you, you know, on the bad things, right? It's like, you just kind of stay even, like, hey, thank you very much, appreciate the compliment. You know, it's like, oh, now they're talking really bad about you, you know, and it's like, okay, it is what it is. It's part of the business. You know, it's like, you just got to stay right here, you know, because you can't let those highs be too high and those lows be too low. Now you're letting the opinions of outside people determine, you know, what your happiness level is, right? And it's like, we can't let that happen.
I always say, don't believe your own hype.
That's true, yeah.
And it's easy to do when you're 17 and you got everything handed to you.
And I've seen it happen, you know, before. You know, you get some of these guys, they start having some success. Now you got these agents calling them. Now they got this like kind of entourage kind of going on. The circle gets bigger because everybody wants a piece of you.
But their arm length gets longer and sloppier, and they're not listening.
Because it's like, hey, what did you do do to get you to this point. We're no longer doing these things because you're so preoccupied with all these other things. And then now things, aren't going our way anymore.
Keep the main thing the main
thing.
Keep
the main thing the main thing.
It's I'm glad you're able to catch up with him. I know you talk to him all the time, but it's different when you're face to face.
It's great, and it's funny, a couple of guys were taking pictures and I'm like, oh, hey, have somebody else come over here to stand next to you or something like that. And he goes, oh, no, I want to be next to you, because we'd always have that joke, hey, man, get next to me because I'm not tall, so it's going to make you look taller, when you're next to me. So he made the joke. He gets next to me, goes, no, I got to help my recruitment, man. Let me get a little closer to you,
Yeah, but then you guys put like a 6'5" guy next to you.
Then there's that, yeah. So tall guy's like, hey, you guys go over there, man. Stand on the edges somewhere. I don't need you all next to me like that.
Good for Bryce, man. Good for him. And shout out to Norms and Pico Rivera. We might have to take the podcast on the road.
We should, man. We'll do it.
Yeah. See, Bryce is cool, but he's not Del Rey.
He's
not ready for DelEy.
Yeah, we'll get him over there. We'll get him over there soon.
Maybe after like a Super Bowl, he can go to Del Rey.
Okay, I like that. That's our spot, man. Okay,
it's a spot, but Bryce, we love you, but you got to earn.
Yeah, you got to earn Del Rey.
You don't know about that. For Danny Hernandez, I'm Beth Duran. Next episode is going to be the reality of what the portal is all about, because it's fascinating. And the Wild West.
It is.
Thanks for watching the Dimecast podcast. Make sure you subscribe, and thanks to SOA Studios.